Boom. And there you have it, man. So let's talk about this YFN Lucci situation, man. What's really going on out here? Well, it looks like YFN Lucci has actually taken a plea deal in his RICO case, man. Now, a lot of the rappers today in Atlanta and other places who are allegedly involved in some sort of gang or anything, they've been having a stroke of bad luck, and that's come in the form of a RICO indictment. Now, Atlanta stepped out in the forefront, man, and they put down 2 RICO indictments on 2 of the biggest rappers in the city. One being YFN Lucci, the other being Young Thug. Now, Young Thug and YFN Lucci's cases have been going complete opposite because on one end, you've got Young Thug. It's been pretty much a circus. I'm going to keep it real with you, man. The whole thing has been a circus. Everything involved in it seems like a circus. It's just a wild situation when you compare it to YFN Lucci's situation, man, which has been pretty quiet. I'm going to keep it real, man. When it comes to YFN Lucci, everything on his end has been extremely quiet. Not a lot of people out there talking about it. Not a lot of updates on this case or anything like that. We've all kind of been waiting in the wind and seeing how this thing panned out or how things would pan out, right? Well, what's crazy is there's some paperwork that's floating around on social media. And news of YFN Lucci signing a plea deal kicked off today. So a lot of people were out there, and a lot of people out there were speculating on what's up with the paperwork. Did he tell on anybody or anything? So, you know, once somebody signs a deal, and we've seen with the Gunna situation, people are going to speculate. And it seems like YFN Lucci actually held it down, man. He signed a deal without telling on anybody or anything like that. So I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it, man. I'm glad in this situation, it seems like somebody's going to get the win. And it seems like YFN Lucci is that dude. You know what I mean? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over the paperwork, and I'm also going to go over some of the things that were said by the news and the media out there. So first things first, man. Let's actually look, if I could bring it up, at this video from the news report out there. All right. Now, while that's loading up, if you're in here, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you hit that like button, and make sure you hit that subscribe button. Like I said, this is my very first time going live on this channel, and I just wanted to bring this news to you first things first.
He serves time for a racketeering case in Fulton County. Channel 2's Michael Seiden is live outside the Fulton County Courthouse, and Michael, YFN Lucci was facing life.
Okay, so in this video, you're going to hear the local news there in Atlanta, and they're going to go over exactly what went down today as far as YFN Lucci signing the plea deal, like what really went down.
In prison without the possibility of parole.
Yeah, Fred, you know, YFN Lucci was one of several defendants named in this RICO indictment. At one point, he was charged with felony murder, and if he had been convicted on that, he could have been sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. But this week, the start of the 3rd week of jury selection, they found a negotiated plea. They struck a deal with prosecutors. Let me take you back. YFN Lucci, again, whose real name is Rayshawn Bennett, was sentenced as part of this negotiated plea to 20 years in prison with 10 years to serve for his alleged role in a 2020 deadly drive-by shooting. Now,
y'all heard that, right? He signed a 20-year plea. So we'll get to the good news, but man, regardless of all that, he's going to have to walk on eggshells for a long time, man. You know what I mean? There's going to be a long time on paperwork, and we're going to actually look at the stipulations of the paperwork and the stipulations of his plea deal in a second. But y'all do me a favor. Make sure y'all hit that like button if you ain't here right now. I see you. And don't be scared to talk in the chat, man. I know it's a new channel we going live on, and I ain't going to have a lot of the people are going to be from over there. But shout out your cities in the chat and all that, man. Let's go.
as part of the negotiated plea, Bennett will get credit for time served, which means in about 3.5 months, he will go before the Pardon and Parole Board. The DA's office has also agreed to send a letter that shows they are not opposed to.
Now, that was a very important part right there. Rayshawn Bennett, a.k.a. YFN Lucci, he's going to be going in front of the parole board here in about 3.5 months. So it's not looking bad for him, man. Like, the faster that he gets in there, it seems like it'll be the better for him, because in 3.5 months, he's going to go before the parole board, and then he's got a sign-off from the same Fulton County District Attorney's Office that's prosecuting him, they're the same people that are about to sign off on the fact that he should be able to go home. They actually put that into the plea agreement, which we'll get to.
His early release. So according to his attorneys, he could be out by the summer based on that negotiated plea. Now, again, prosecutors said that Bennett was behind the wheel of a Mercedes-Benz SUV that was used in a gang-related shootout that left one of his passengers dead at the end of 2020. And then he was, of course, charged in that RICO case. Now, one of the trials we've been talking a lot about is YSL. That's the one involving Young Thug. And a lot of people, especially, there's been a lot of chatter that potentially YFN Lucci would be a witness in that case. Well, I spoke with his attorney, Drew Fendling, after this negotiated plea, and this is what he told me about his.
Now watch this, man. This is going to squash a lot of rumors that are out there about YFN Lucci, man. There's a lot of people who feel like YFN Lucci will possibly have to snitch on somebody in the YSL case, and that's definitely not the case according to his attorney here. Even though he's listed in a long list of people that could be called as witnesses, he has the right to go to his attorney and they could squash that if they would like, man. And nothing in his plea deal says that he's going to have to snitch on Young Thug.
Client appearing on the witness stand. And so many rumors on the internet that this negotiated plea that we are soon going to see him as a star witness in the YSL case. What can you tell people that are...
Anybody that says that's a liar, we all just went to court today, clear as day. There is no cooperation in the YSL case. He will not be testifying in that case. Anybody wants to subpoena him, we'll file a subpoena to quash that subpoena. He wants nothing to do with that case. He's made that clear for 3.5 years. He has said he knows nothing and he will not participate in that case.
Yeah, and he reiterated that to me a couple of times. Again, no matter what the state says in the YSL case, he says he will not be in that courtroom testifying. Now, I will say that before Bennett was sentenced, he did apologize to the victim's friends and family, as well as his friends' family as well. We're going to have much more coming up on...
All right, so you heard that YFN Lucci's attorney basically squashed all the rumors that in his plea deal that he in some way had to cooperate or have to get involved in the YSL case at all. You know what I mean? That's not even a possibility. You know, and if they were ever served a subpoena, his attorney said that, they will take that thing and basically not throw it in the trash, but basically tell them that they're not going to get involved. You know what I mean? Like he doesn't want to be involved in the YSL case at all. So, man, let's talk about what's floating out there. There's some alleged paperwork that's floating out there about YFN Lucci, and it's supposed to be the exact deal that he signed this morning, man. I don't know how this stuff gets on social media, but let's check it out, man. And I'm not in any way saying this is 100% factual, but it does look legit, man. It looks pretty legit if you ask me, man. So this is the first document that I seen floating out there, and it's supposedly the first document in the plea agreement. So as you can see at the top, it has the Superior Court of Fulton County, State of Georgia, Ray Sean Bennett. Then it has the indictment number and the case number. And it says that it was filed in the Superior Court e-filed on the date listed right there, man. So you have the 23rd of January 2024. And that, guess what, is today, man. Now, all of this information, like I said, is floating around social media. So take it with a grain of salt. But when it comes to paperwork, this looks pretty legit, you know what I mean? Now, the next section I want y'all to take a look at. It's this section right here when you go down. Well, first it says, do you understand that by pleading guilty, you are giving up the following rights? And it lists the rights that you give up when you plead guilty in one of these, in any type of indictment. This could have been a RICO. This could be anything, right? So when you enter a guilty plea, these are the things that you give up. I'm not going to list or read them all. You guys can pause this later if you watch this later and read a list of all the things, but they're right there. The important part is the next part where it says, do you understand that the court may sentence you to the maximum punishment allowed by law, which is imprisonment for the total of 20 years and a fine totaling NA. So there's no fines involved in this plea deal. Circled yes. And you see on the yes of all the rights that he's given up, it looks like it was YFN Lucci. He put his initials right there. Hopefully you guys can see that, right? All right, the next section says, do you understand that the state has promised to recommend a sentence of 20 to SU 10? Now, this is going to be tough for you guys to see because the handwriting is a little choppy, man. And this is coming from a guy whose handwriting isn't the best either, but work with me on this one. It says 20 to SU, 10 BAL, probated, dismissed of all other counts, and pending cases. And write a letter to the parole board recommending release when you are first eligible, so long as you comply with your sentence. Okay, let's clean all that up, man, because I had to roll through that handwriting right there, right? So basically, this is saying that you're gonna get a letter of recommendation to the parole board recommending release when you are eligible, so long as you comply with your sentence. So as long as he complies with his sentence, he's going to get a recommendation from the parole board, and circled yes. And just as long as he complies. So there's a lot of things he has to comply to, and we'll get to that in a minute. Now, it continues by asking, are you now under the influence of anything or whatnot? And these are just normal questions that they ask, like make sure you're not getting pressured, make sure you're in the right state of mind and all that, right? Next, it says, do you plead guilty to the charges which have been read to you? And then even they wrote count 6-9. Now, count 6-9 was the count that YFN Lucci was the only count that YFN Lucci actually had in the YFN RICO case, if you guys remember the whole paperwork or whatnot, right? And he circled yes. Now, it looks like he made a mistake, and he had the initial right here. It says, has anyone forced or threatened you to plead guilty? He said yes, and had to mark that out and initial it when he put no. It says, do you understand that if you are currently on probation, your probation may be revoked because of your guilty plea here? And he said yes, and he responded yes. Then it says, I am a U.S. citizen. He marked it, and then he signed as the defendant. The judge signed. The defendant's attorney signed. His attorney was Drew Fenneling and another guy, and then they dated it, man. So that's the first page of YFN Lucci's guilty plea, man. You know what I mean? Allegedly. You know what I mean? Like I said, these things are floating all over social media. No clue if it's correct or not, but that's what they've got out there, man. So let's look at page 2. Okay? All right, so in page 2 of this document, it says this, and hopefully you guys can see that. Yep, you can. In page 2 of the document, it says this, Rayshawn Bennett. It has his booking number, the state of Georgia versus him. And right here, you can see where it says count 69. And let's see. Where it says count 69, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4 down, where it has the charges. You see count 69 is the only count that he pled guilty to. And it has 20 years served 10, years balance of 10, years probated. So 20 years with a 10-year sentence, years balance of 10 probated. So basically he's going to be on 10 years of probation, but he's supposed to serve 10 years behind bars. Now he's got 4 years almost, 3 years of time served behind bars. Then he's got the letter from the DA's office requesting that he be eligible for release his first time at bat. So his first time up. And these are the other charges that I believe were against him, they're saying. And right there, it looks like he didn't plead guilty to any of those. So you can see the only one he pled guilty to was this count right here, which is count 69. And that's the sentence that was suggested and the sentence that he reportedly received. So let's move along, man. Let's look at page 3 of the plea agreement. Right here. All right, so on page 3, it's most of the same. But if you look at the sentence summary, they kind of delve deeper into what his sentence is. It says on the sentence summary, the defendant is sentenced for a total of 20 years, with the first 10 years to be served in confinement and the remainder to be served on probation. So they basically split his 20-year sentence in half, and just half he has to do on probation, man. Now, the defendant is to receive credit for the time served in custody, as determined by the custodian. Then it also says, number 2, marked that upon service of 10 years, the remainder of the sentence may be served on probation, provided that the defendant shall comply with the conditions of probation imposed by the court as part of this sentence. Now, this is the important part. General conditions of probation. The defendant is subject to arrest for any violation of probation. Now, this is where it's going to get tricky for a rapper, or tricky for YFN Lucci or anybody in the rap game, right? Because usually these conditions are pretty strict. I mean, things like not having do not commit any crimes or break any laws, that's one thing. But some of these other things we'll see, man. So, number 1, do not violate the criminal laws of any governmental unit, and be of general good behavior. 2, avoid injurious, and it continues on the next page. I'm going to show you guys. So let's go to page 4 of the plea agreement. There we go. All right, so on this page 4 of the plea agreement, it says this. All right, and vicious habits, it continues from the last. And then number 3, he has to avoid persons or places of disreputable or harmful character. Now that's all going to come to somebody's decision if it's a place of a disreputable or harmful character, have people of disreputable or harmful character. So that means some clubs he probably not going to be able to go to unless he proves that he's going there for work. Report to the community supervision officer as directed, and permit the community supervision officer to visit you at home or elsewhere. Work faithfully at suitable employment insofar as may be possible. Do not change your place of abode, move outside the jurisdiction of the court, or leave Georgia without the permission of the community supervision officer. Now imagine having to do this for 10 years. Like I mean, most people don't leave where they live, right? But if you're a rapper, every time you move, remember in the YSL case, I want to say it was YSL, his name escapes me now, but if you looked at he had another case connected to the YSL RICO case where every time they went on tour, he had to sign in, sign out. I mean, it was like days later sometimes. And that's what YFN Lucci is looking for, you know what I mean? Now it says, if permitted to move or travel to another state, you agree to waive extradition from any jurisdiction where you may be found, and not consent any effort and not contest any effort by any jurisdiction to return to your state or to return you to the state. So basically saying that YFN Lucci, if he decides, hey man, I want to move from Atlanta, he's got to make sure he still gives them jurisdiction to come get him if he's in a different state. Say he wants to move to California. Now, number 8, when directed in the discretion of the community, successfully complete rehabilitative programming where a device capable of tracking location by means including electronic surveillance or global positioning satellite system. Complete a residential and non-residential program for substance abuse or mental health treatment, and or agree to the imposition of graduated sanctions as defined by law. Make restitution as ordered by the court. Fines, surcharges, or add-ons. Now this is interesting. I don't think they're going to hold him to all of those things, but they might. Like, he might not have to go to all these different programs, but I mean, if they ask him to, I'd do it. You know what I'm saying? That's better than going back to jail for 10 years. You know what I mean? Or finishing out a 20-year sentence. Now it says 9, make restitution, blah, blah, blah. Now the court orders that the defendant shall pay the probation supervision fee as required by law. And the only other thing that they marked off is if counsel was provided under the Georgia Indigent Defense Act, the defendant shall pay the $50 public defender application fee. All right, so it looks like when it comes to fees, he's not going to have to pay anything, man, YFN Lucci. I mean, and that's going off of if this paperwork is, correct. But based on what's floating out there, this is what's being said. Now, special conditions of probation. Defendant shall not participate in any street gang activity. So anybody that he was associated with, close to, cool with, anything of that nature, he's going to have to stay away from, and you're going to see they list them below. Defendant shall have no contact, direct or indirect, with any criminal, street gang member, or associate. Defendants shall have no contact, direct or indirect, with co-defendants. So, and here's a list: Derek Adams, Rondavius Hawkins, Rayvon Boyd, Leroy Pitts, Artez Carter, Malik Stanley, Reginald Carter, DeMonte Thomas, Titicus Glass, Justin Ushery, and Victor Meadows. So defendant shall not possess no guns, firearms, or replicas. So he can't have a gun on him. He can't be involved in the street gang at all. They basically telling him here, dog, you cannot mess around in the streets no more. That's a done deal. It's over with. It's done, dog. And these people that you used to kick it with that were co-defendants, you can't even be around them in this case. And I'm pretty sure that's going to be a tough one because YFN Lucci, you know, his homeboys seem like a real tight group or a tighter group. You know what I mean? What up, King Donald Goins? I see you. What up in the chat, man? Yo, if you ain't here, make sure you hit that like button and don't be afraid to say something in the chat, man. You know, we a small group. It's like our first live over here, and it's going pretty good, man. I thought I'd feel a little rusty, but we back at it. You know what I'm saying? All right, so let's continue. Let's continue on to the 5th page, and there's only 7 pages of this floating around, so we're not gonna beat a dead horse. But I just wanted to go through the alleged plea agreement that he signed and exactly what he can't do and who he can't be around and all the conditions. So those people who think that, yes, this might be a win, it's still going to be a tough road for YFN Lucci if all this pans through and if all this paperwork proves to be correct, right? Now, the defendant shall have no gang affiliations and or conduct associated with gangs on social media. Now, that goes up to interpretation. So he has to watch his social media closely and make sure that nobody that he's cool with or that he could still be cool with that's not listed in the case throws up anything with their hands. Even when he gets released, he got to make sure nobody's throwing any gang signs or anything like that. He's got to be, like I said, walking on eggshells. Defendant shall be gainfully employed. He's a rapper. That's not a problem. Defendant shall not violate any state or federal laws while serving any portion of this sentence, including any period of incarceration. That's tough, man. It's like you got to make sure you can't have no traffic violations, even though, you know, they argue these things, you know what I'm saying, in court. It's not like you automatically go to jail, you know what I mean, because you got a parking ticket or whatever, you know what I mean? But it gets tricky, you know what I mean? Defendant shall comply with all rules of any county jail where he is housed prior to being transported to a facility within the Department of Corrections where he is designated to serve his sentence. So for these next 3-4 months where he serves his sentence, he's just got to make sure he keeps his nose clean. I mean, they're probably going to put him somewhere like by himself. You know what I mean? I don't see them putting him on the main line or anything like that, even though technically YFN Lucci has done nothing that should gain the ire or gain any type of negative attention to where he wouldn't be able to walk the line. You know what I mean? Like he didn't even tell on Young Thug or anybody, and they gave him the opportunity. Remember last summer they brought another plea deal, and that plea deal was horrible. It was like one of the worst plea deals in the world. It was 20 years with 17 that he had to serve. You know what I mean? So he would have did 20 years, 17 he had to serve. The other 3 would have been probation. So this time they came to the table, and I think they came to the table with some sense this time. And I just want to go off on a tangent here for a second before we finish this up. I think, man, that Atlanta DA's office has a lot going on. I think the Fulton County DA's office got a lot going on right now, and they probably going to try to clear the house with a lot of these RICO cases. Want to know why? These RICO cases are expensive, man. That's why the feds usually do them. Like these RICO cases take up a lot of time, a lot of resources. It's a lot of things that they got to make sure that they're sticking to make sure it's a RICO. It's easier to hand somebody a deal, even on paper, if they're quote unquote the boss, as opposed to trying to fight this out in court, especially when you got the Atlanta DA's office under intense scrutiny right now because of some alleged things that they got going on. So I think the Atlanta DA's office is like, man, we got to start. This might be a positive for Young Thug. Y'all hang in there we might hear some good news for Young Thug. But let me continue what YFN Lucci has to look forward to when he's on probation, according to this paperwork here. You know what I mean? Now it says that the defendant shall comply with all rules maintained at the facility. And that's basically saying that he has to, and the rest of these talk about how he behaves in jail. Now the final one, what does it say? The state shall write a letter in the board to the, this is the good part. This is the good part for YFN Lucci. The state shall write a letter to the Board of Pardons and Paroles, stating that the state would not object to the defendant being released from the Department of Corrections the first time he becomes eligible for parole or after serving 1/3 of his prison sentence, whichever comes first, upon compliance with the following conditions. Defendant shall not comply with the lawful authority the defendant shall comply with the lawful authority of personnel in the facility in which he is housed. Defendant shall have no further incidents from the date of this plea in any penal institution. The court acknowledges the defendant has been incarcerated since January 13th, 2021. So they said 1/3. Remember that. So if he completes 1/3 of his sentence, he'll be able to go in front of the parole board, and they're writing a letter from the DA's office in this agreement that says, yo, his first time at bat, let him free. You know what I'm saying? This is probably one of the best deals he could ever get. You know, just because of that last part right there. He's been in jail for 3 years. Couple months later, a couple of months from now, they're saying he'll be out by summer. That's what they said in the news report we went over earlier. They're saying by summertime, he's probably going to be kicking it on the beach or something. This is a good thing for YFN Lucci, man. That's the only reason why I'm laughing, man. So let's see the last 2 pages of this paperwork, man, and what it says. And y'all do me a favor. Y'all make sure y'all hit that like button, man. Don't be stingy. So in part 6, this looks like, okay, so this is what his attorney allegedly signed, right? If this paperwork is all true, right? It says the judge signed and Cheryl Gillum, the court reporter, the Honorable Drew Finling, attorney at law, represented the defendant by employment. So this is all for the court's use. All right, that's not important. It's just showing who his attorney is and that his attorney signed off on this. And Drew Finland, he might as well prepare for his client list to go up, because him getting YFN Lucci a deal like this, after we read all through all that, man, think about it, man. This is a win-win, right? Now, this last part, the affidavit of custodian, let's go ahead, look in. This basically shows how long he's been locked up, or when they took over, or when he turned himself into custody. It says, I, the undersigned custodian of the defendant, do swear and affirm that the following Georgia Fulton County is true and correct to the best of my knowledge. It has his name in 3 different ways. Was confined on the case number right there, the same case number that's been through all this paperwork that we got. And it says he entered into it on May 10th, 2021. Some about that date is wrong, but who knows, man? Maybe this is just after he had already been moved through the system a while, because according to all the other reports, I think it was like January 13th that he turned himself in of 2021. You know what I mean? And this is the office that it was filed in. I don't know, man. Y'all tell me what y'all think. Y'all see the case numbers. Y'all see everything involved. Y'all think this paperwork is accurate and is really, really, really from the state, or somebody really got this from the state's office or whatnot? Because that was a lot, man. And the conditions that he's going to have, they seem pretty strict right now. But for YFN Lucci, I'm thinking, man, he'll be all right. He'll be all right. He just got to keep his nose clean for the rest of the time that he's in jail. And he's got to keep his nose clean when he gets back on the streets. And they gave him a list of people he can't kick it with no more, man, which is funny almost, man. It's pretty funny, you know? It's like basically telling them, hey, man, you can't kick it with these people at all. Now, don't be afraid to holler in the chat and shout out your city, shout out anybody, you know what I'm saying? Definitely shout out your city, because I like to interact with the chat, man. Let me know. And make sure you hit that like button too, man, because, we gets to it. We get right to the case. All right, man. So another thing I wanted to show you that proves that YFN Lucci might be the all-time winner in this situation, right? Let's check this out. I want you guys to look at this right here. Boom. Now that is Michael Seiden. He's been covering the YSL and the YFN cases there in Atlanta. He's a local Atlanta reporter. He was the one who broke the news about the plea deal. And he's the one who put this tweet out right here that got everybody talking about 3.5 months. Y'all saw we looked at the paperwork and it basically listed off, everything that we said. And like I said, that paperwork is what's floating on social media. Don't hold me to that. But all the seals, the dates and stuff, that look like the real deal. But it is what it is. So in this tweet, you see it says, breaking, YFN Lucci will serve about 3 to 5 months in jail, and then he will be released and serve the rest of his sentence on probation. You see that? Yeah, I see that too. And basically, he's letting people know that YFN Lucci is pretty much a free man. Now he says more details. He continued. He says, as a part of his negotiated plea, YFN Lucci was sentenced to 10 years in prison, but after serving one third of his sentence, he is eligible for parole. After getting credit for time served, he will be eligible for parole in 3 to 5 months. Now, we all saw that, right? That in 3 to 5 months, he's eligible for parole or whatnot. You know what I mean? So it looks like YFN Lucci's situation that we saw in the paperwork is absolutely true. I know it seems like YFN Lucci is getting blessed in this situation, but like I said, with what's going on right now in Atlanta with the Atlanta DA's office, they probably trying to get these expensive RICO cases up out of there because they got their own thing that they got to worry about. You know what I mean? Because and I'm not going to get into it, but it's wide news what's going on out there in Atlanta as far as the DA's office. It's national news. You know what I'm saying? Now, prosecutors have already agreed to not fight his release, so his defense team is very confident that he will be released early from prison. Simply put, YFN Lucci will be released in 3.5 months. And there you go, folks. There you have it, man. That's wild. I don't even know what to say or think about it, but I know for YFN Lucci, this is a win. Like a win-win, a big win. You know what I mean? And I'm hoping that, man, some of this trickles down. And I know people are going to say, well, there's victims. He had to apologize and stuff. There were people who ended up hurt in this situation. Is it really a win? For YFN Lucci, it definitely is. You know what I mean? And as far as all these reports are concerned, as far as all the conditions are concerned, he's just going to have to keep his nose clean, man, super clean. Like they said in that one part of the paperwork, there's a list of people he can't talk to, man. Ooh, where was it at? Was it here? There's a list right there of people that he can't associate with and talk to. And all of those people were listed as co-defendants in his RICO case. So you can see down there, that'll be weird. That'll be tough because I'm pretty sure a lot of those dudes are real close to YFN Lucci. Some of them might not be. Some of them might just be people that were associated with him through the RICO and he has no real contact with or anything like that. We see that a lot with Thug. But for the most part, man, if those people are close to him, that'd be a tough pill to swallow, man. If somebody tells you you're not allowed to hang out with these people any longer. You know what I mean? Craziness, man. This is wild. This is wild. But, man, you can't go a week without something crazy happening out here in the social media space. Let's see, man. Okay, we got a couple of y'all in here, man. Don't be shy. Shout out your city in the chat. Also, make sure you hit that like button. Run them likes up and share this, man. Your boy been digging in the crates, getting paperwork, doing all that stuff, man. But, man, what I want to do is I want to go back to that news story as well and point out what his attorney, Drew Finland, said, man. I want to point that out for you guys. If I get this while this loads, man. There we go. We'll let that load for a second. But, man, what do y'all think? Y'all tell me in the chat. Do y'all think that YFN Lucci, you saw the conditions of his probation. You saw everything else that's going on with YFN Lucci in this case. Is this still a win, man? Do you think he'll be able to make it through all of this without, messing up? because the conditions are so stringent?
It's after he serves time for
All right, here we go. So this is the local news in Atlanta, and basically they break down the story of him signing it, and I just wanted to point out something at the end. So we'll just check out parts and pieces of this. If it's going to work. Let's go. Well, I guess not. Yeah, I just wanted to point out at the end there was a portion, and you guys can see at the front of this live if you play it back later. There was a portion there where YFN Lucci's attorney basically said that he didn't have to cooperate in the YFN case. So, it shouldn't be any type of issue for him going forward in the rap game. Actually, if you guys remember, he's adamant. He put it out. He basically told them, like, ain't no way he's cooperating. Like, he put it out there. He was adamant about the fact that he would not cooperate. And his attorney seems the same way. And let's see, man. We'll let that load and see if it comes up. If it doesn't, it doesn't, man. But in the meanwhile, let's see what we got in the chat. It's a lesson for a lot of street people who go by the business to the right way.
It's after he serves time for a racketeering case in Fulton County. Challenge Who's Michael Seiden is live outside the Fulton County Courthouse, and Michael YFN Lucci was facing life in prison without the possibility of parole.
Yeah, Fred, YFN Lucci was one of several defendants named in this RICO indictment. At one point, he was charged with felony murder, and if he had been convicted on that, he could have been sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. But this week, the start of the third week of jury selection, they found a negotiated plea. They struck a deal with prosecutors. Let me take you back. YFN Lucci, again, whose real name is Rayshawn Bennett, was sentenced as part of this negotiated plea to 20 years in prison with 10 years to serve for his alleged role in a 2020 deadly drive-by shooting. Now,
and the crazy part, they say deadly drive-by shooting, but for anybody who remembers this case, and I obviously remember, the drive-by shooting that they're talking about is his own homeboy getting shot while they were allegedly riding on the ops. You know what I'm saying? The story goes that YFN Lucci were in his Maybach. I don't know why they would be committing a drive-by in a Maybach, but just roll with me. So they're in his Maybach. They go to the ops hood. They start busting. The ops start busting back. One of the guys in his car gets hit. They leave him there at the scene because what else can they do, they feel? Because they're in the commission of a crime. They bring him to the ER. They say, hey, well, how did he get shot? Well, he got shot because we were doing a drive-by. Okay, so go ahead and put on these cuffs and these bracelets. We got these for you. And then he's going to go to and then his homeboy ended up dying anyway, right? So it got found out that it was his car because there's not too many people who can afford a Maybach, right? So YFN Lucci ends up getting arrested for that charge. He feels like, okay, he'll be able to beat that or whatnot. So he bonds out originally for this. It was his homeboy. It was in the commission of the trial. The court will probably be a little lenient on him. No, that case gets wrapped into the RICO. So once it gets wrapped into the RICO, YFN Lucci has to turn himself back into jail because of the RICO indictment. And then there's no bond with the RICO indictment. So that's why he's been in jail for the past 3 years, man. So let's continue.
as part of the negotiated plea, Bennett will get credit for time served, which means in about 3.5 months, he will go before the Pardon and Parole Board. The DA's office has also agreed to send a letter that shows they are not opposed to his early release. So according to his attorneys, he could be out by the summer based on that negotiated plea. Now, again, prosecutors
and this lines up with the paperwork that we went over earlier, man. Not saying it's 100, but it's proven to go with what the story was, you know, and it looked like his signature, but we'll go.
That Bennett was behind the wheel of a Mercedes-Benz SUV that was used in a gang-related shootout that left one of his passengers dead at the end of 2020. And then he was, of course, charged in that RICO case. Now, one of the trials we've been talking a lot about is YSL. That's the one involving Young Thug. And a lot of people, especially, there's been a lot of chatter that this part is very important, man, because YFN Lucci
wants you to know he's standing on the code. He is not about to tell on Young Thug, even if they got their thing going on, they're against each other. He's about to stand by. You know what I mean?
Potentially, YFN Lucci would be a witness in that case. Well, I spoke with his attorney, Drew Fendling, after this negotiated plea, and this is what he told me about his client appearing on the witness stand. And so many rumors on the internet that this negotiated plea, that we are soon going to see him as a star witness in the YSL case. What can you tell people that are...
Anybody that says that's a liar, we all just went to court today, clear as day. There is no cooperation in the YSL case. He will not be testifying in that case. Anybody wants to subpoena him, we'll file a subpoena to quash that subpoena.
His attorney was up. Like, he was like, no, he is not testifying in that case. Anybody who tries to say he testifying in that case, they're lying. You know what I'm saying? Even the attorney standing on business, man. Let's go.
Subpoena. He wants nothing to do with that case. He's made that clear for 3.5 years. He has said he knows nothing and he will not participate in that case.
His attorney was on it. He said, man, regardless of what you think, he's not going to testify in that case. What up, Nashville? What up? What up? What up? I see you. He's not going to testify in that case, man. So he didn't even, and they asked him a year ago when they gave him that nasty plea, the other horrible plea. They were calling one of the worst plea deals ever. They asked him then to testify, or would he testify? He was like, no. So it looks like YFN Lucci, man, depending on even if you're a street dude, this is a win. Then depending on if you just a fan of his music, it's a win. And I know that people were hurt in the process. His homeboy who was riding with him, who lost his life. But in the end, that guy kind of did make that decision himself to ride out. You know what I'm saying? So it's hard to hold YFN Lucci 100% responsible for that situation, even though we do respect the dead and RIP to that gentleman, right?
Yeah, and he reiterated that to me a couple of times. Again, no matter what the state says in the YSL case, he says he will not be in that courtroom testifying. Now, I will say that before Bennett was sentenced, he did apologize to the victim's friends and family, as well as his friends' family as well. We're going to have much more coming up on...
It's after...
All right, there it goes. I just wanted to clear the air for YFN Lucci, for anybody who was thinking that he might have got any sort of special... or had to snitch or tell or anything, but to receive that plea agreement that we went over. Judging by the paperwork, judging by his attorney statements, judging by everything with YFN Lucci, he's the only winner in this situation so far. He didn't win all out, because I saw in my other video where somebody in the comment section was like, well, he still went to jail and he's still going to be a convicted felon. Yes, that's true. But when you weigh the greater consequences in this situation and everything, as opposed to what YFN Lucci is actually going to see as far as time, according to the plea agreement we were looking at and all that paperwork and the news stories that's out here, man, YFN Lucci might have the best deal in this whole situation. Everybody else in the YSL case, some of them who went home, yeah, five years probation, 9 years, 12 years probation, 7 years probation, right? He's going to have to do 10 years probation, but he was actually listed in the document as the boss. So if he's listed as the boss, him being able to get out of this situation with only 3 more months in jail and 10 years probation, that's a win. That's a win. Where's my sound effect? That's what I'm missing. And this is my first time on this channel going live, but we gonna be going live like once or twice a week now that we up on this. You know what I'm saying? Interviews is in remote. That's on remote control. But over here, we about to do some real deal blogging, man. We gonna get to it. But that's besides the point. With all that being said, YFN Lucci is the clear-cut only winner in this situation so far, man. And I know he's done some time behind bars. I know they tried to stab him. I know all that, man. But man, if you really weigh everything, it looks like YFN Lucci definitely might have a brighter future, just as long as he keeps his nose clean. All right, man. Now, this was a relatively short live. I just wanted to go over that paperwork that was floating all over social media, go through it, look at and judge the validity. I still don't know. And then I wanted to talk about some of the rumors that were out there about YFN Lucci. I appreciate everybody who showed up in the chat, or everybody who showed up just to view. But do me a favor, on your way out, make sure you hit that like button, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and make sure you hit that notification bell. So that way you get a notification every time I drop this hot content. And we out of here. Peace. Shout out to the chat. Shout out everybody else. Shout out, shout out, shout out.